If this was so important as it relates to whether or not the President of the United States has done something so wrong, then why is it that we couldn't have our hearing at 11 o'clock this morning instead of members being in a criminal courthouse with a twice impeached, over 88 count indicted sexual abuser, instead of being here to do the work of the American people if this was serious?
The recent Congress meeting was to discuss and vote on a resolution to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. The committee claimed that Garland failed to comply with a subpoena by not providing certain documents and information related to an investigation into President Joe Biden. The meeting involved intense debates and was marked by personal attacks and disruptions among committee members. Mr. Moskowitz criticized the move to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. He argued that the Department of Justice was not being transparent about classified documents and audio recordings related to Special Counsel Hur's investigation. Moskowitz stressed the need for accountability and transparency from the White House and criticized the alleged misuse of executive privilege to withhold information from Congress.
Chair recognizes Mr. Moskowitz.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so welcome to Oversight After Dark. If you love James Comer at 11 o'clock in the morning, you're really going to love him at 8:30 p.m. So, members, the hearing was moved today. We don't have to ask the question. The hearing was moved today so that members could go to New York and attend the Trump hearing. But how's he doing? He's complained that he's chilly in the courtroom. Is it chilly? Is it chilly?
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I'll assume it's
He's
chilly.
He's doing very good.
Okay, good. So, it was mentioned by the ranking member about really what we're doing here. You don't have to listen to my words. I would like to do a spirited reading of the campaign email sent out by the chairman. And it's on lovely stationery. In fact, it says, "From the desk of the oversight chairman." I'm not sure you can do that, but I'm not an ethics expert. It says, "Friend, President Biden is exerting executive privilege in a last-ditch attempt to stop the disastrous audio recording of his interview with special counsel from being released." And it's highlighted in yellow. Want to make sure people saw that. "Just a few months ago, the White House bragged that Joe Biden had nothing to hide and would not exert executive privilege during special counsel Hur's investigation. They even said he had nothing to hide." That's in italics. "Now Biden and his advisors are terrified that I, James Comer, will release the recordings, forcing the media and the Democrats to answer for the dismal decline of Biden's mental state. He even had attorney Merrick Garland write a letter saying that his interview falls within the scope of executive privilege. This could be the final blow with swing voters across the country." Okay. You and I know, hold on, we're not done, it gets better. "You and I know he's not up for the job, but the mainstream's media refusal to report on it as only keeping him in the game. Stand with Comer." The Democrats, you sure about that? "The Democrats are pulling out all the stops to stop the bleeding. That means coming after me with everything they had. If you're able, we hope you are, I'd be so grateful if you'd consider making a donation to my campaign. I sure need it to defend against the onslaught of attacks. Thank you for everything. James Comer, Chairman of the House Oversight Committee." Without objection, I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
All right, beautiful. So again, Mr. Chairman, since you think this is the final blow, right, and obviously the Chairman of Judiciary is here too, we only have June, July, and September before the election. We're not here in August and October. So, I mean, I'm sure the American people are paying attention at 11:30 p.m. where you buried this hearing because it's so important. When are we going to do the impeachment of Joe Biden? When is that going to happen? Is it going to be June? Is it going to be July? Is it going to be September? Let's put it on the calendar. Let's just put it on the calendar. Pick a month. We're available. We were available at 11 a.m. You guys weren't. Just pick a month, right, so we can get it on the calendar and do the impeachment. So hold on. I'll give you choices. Ready? June. July. How about September? Okay, so we're never going to schedule this thing. It's never going to happen. He's sending out more subpoenas because he has no evidence, okay? And yet, here we go, around and around and around. And so, we get it. You'll raise money off of it. Congratulations to you. If you want, Mr. Chairman, I can get the transcript out I can do a spirited reading. We can sit here. I'll do all 250 pages for you. I'll even put on like a Biden mask, make it visual so you can like really get in the moment. I mean, we just want to know, like, what's it going to take, Mr. Chairman, to get you comfortable? You go on Newsmax and you get comfortable. What's it going to take to get you comfortable to ask your friend, Chairman Jordan, sitting next to you, when we're going to schedule impeachment? So we'll do it again. Ready? How about June, July, September?
Does the gentleman know how many spare Biden masks there are available in D.C.?
I don't, but there's a lot on Etsy. You can get lots of things. Okay, so look, I'll yield the balance of my time to the ranking member if he wants to use the last 40. Oh, you have something to say, Mr. Chairman? Go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say you yielded to Ranking Member
Yeah, I'm
Raskin. He
done.
has
I
30
know.
seconds.
Go ahead, Mr. Ranking Member.
Thank you, Mr. Moskowitz. There is an ethics principle that no solicitation of a campaign or political contribution may be linked to an action taken or to be taken by a member or employee in his or her official capacity. That's just a reminder to my side. I hope that nobody is linking specific actions that you're taking on the Oversight Committee to campaign contributions or solicitations. And with that, I'll yield back to the distinguished gentleman from Florida.
Time's expired. Does any other member seek recognition?
Ms. Greene voiced her frustration over taxpayers having to fund the session, labeling it as a waste of money. She criticized the timing of the meeting, suggesting it was unnecessary and burdensome on taxpayers. Greene's remarks included several personal attacks on other members, which contributed to the chaos and significant delays in the proceedings. Greene particularly highlighted the absurdity of holding a session so late at night, implying it was a misuse of resources that taxpayers ultimately fund. Her criticisms were part of a broader pattern of disruptions throughout the hearing. She attacked the Democrats, questioning the purpose of the meeting and suggesting that it was more about political theater than substantive oversight.
Now, I'd like to remind everyone that the American taxpayers were forced to pay millions and millions of dollars for the January 6th committee last Congress, who was convened during prime time, evening hours, and they hired an ABC News executive, James Goldston, to produce these committee hearings. Actually had the American taxpayers pay for this. And Democrats are complaining about our committee hearing this evening. I'd also like to remind everyone that during the 117th Congress, we would vote until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, many, many times, late at night. And that was when Democrats controlled the House. But the worst thing about the January 6th committee is that the Speaker broke her own rules. When she produced this committee, created the committee, the Minority Leader appointed members of Congress to this committee, and they were denied being able to participate on the January 6th committee. This committee operated against the rules of Congress. It was procedurally defective.
Mr. Garcia criticized the process and the motivations behind it. He argued that the proceedings were politically motivated and framed as a spectacle rather than a genuine effort for accountability. Garcia highlighted the lack of substantial evidence against President Biden and suggested that the committee's actions were more about political theater than seeking truth or justice.
Just take a moment just to put today in context. We're here right now at this late hour to accommodate the majority's field trip to praise their leader. And let's not forget that he left office in disgrace. Yes, gentle lady from Georgia, we're going to talk about that Donald Trump, who stole classified materials and stored them in his bathroom. He was investigated and indicted for his crimes. Now, Attorney General Garland set up a parallel investigation of President Biden's handling of classified documents as well. And that shows the Department of Justice is actually fair and independent. So to oversee this investigation, he appointed Robert Hur, a former U.S. attorney handpicked by Donald Trump. Robert Hur found no wrongdoing by President Biden. No wrongdoing by President Biden. But he chose to smear President Biden with a totally unprofessional and wrong assessment of the president's age and mental sharpness. Now, as we know, his assessment about President Biden was wrong because you can literally yourself read the transcript, which is over 250 pages long. Now, many of us, especially us Democrats, know the president. He is sharp. He is focused on the big issues. He's dealing with large challenges across the world. Now, the majority is hyping up this issue to distract us from the fact that Donald Trump keeps embarrassing himself in public. And as much as the gentle lady from Georgia and others may not like it, we know that Trump's public statements have been crazy and incoherent for years. And we know that he is too tired and sleepy to stay awake through his own criminal trial. It's not President Biden who's not sharp. It's, in fact, Donald Trump. Now, let's look at public reporting. I'm only going to talk about public reporting. His criminal trial started on April 15th. And here's a summary of the press reports. On his first day of his trial, Reuters reported that Trump appeared to doze off during jury selection. On April 16th, it was reported that Trump dropped his head inside the courtroom, keeping his eyes closed before jolting his head upright. On April 19th, the New York Times reported Trump's eyes remained, quote, closed for extended periods during the final day of jury selection. On April 22nd, MSNBC reported that Trump's lawyers were fighting to keep him awake. On April 30th, NBC and the New York Times reported that Trump nodded off for significant portions of witness testimony, and as we all know, basically kept his eyes closed for hours and hours on end. On May 9th, Trump's eyes remained closed for many minutes, and Trump later, of course, dozed on and off. And the reports go on and on. May 13th, Trump was, quote, asleep during the afternoon session. On May 14th, a political reporter said Trump slouched in his seat and closed his eyes and his mouth. Now, here we have a photo of Donald Trump, of course, through some of his trial. And I bring this up because it's Donald Trump that's asleep and that's hurting and dividing our country. And this attack on President Biden and his mental acuteness or his ability or his age is completely just a reason and an excuse for the Republicans to continue to attack President Biden when we all know that Donald Trump is the one that's unfit to be president. And that's why the majority is so desperate to be here today, because they want to help him get elected and hurt President Biden. Well, it's not going to work, and with that, I yield back.
Ms. Boebert expressed strong support for the resolution. She argued that Garland's refusal to comply with a subpoena for audio recordings of President Biden's interview with a special counsel obstructed congressional oversight.
Now, the American people, fortunate or unfortunate, have heard Joe Biden speak for over 3 years now, really, if you include the campaign, about 4 years. And we have witnessed in real time a massive cognitive decline. President Trump, when he was in office, he underwent testing for his cognitive dissonance, for his ability to function as president of the United States, as the commander-in-chief. And unfortunately, I haven't seen Joe Biden even read a teleprompter properly and get through the reading without also adding in what's in the brackets when he needs to take a pause. And there are many things that we could go on here, but I want to hear the inflections in Joe Biden's responses when he is answering these questions. Now, on February 27th, 2024, the Oversight Committee issued a subpoena for relevant information regarding the special counsel's investigation, including the transcript and any recordings of the special counsel's interviews with President Biden in October of 2023. Now, to date, the Department of Justice has refused to provide the committee the audio recordings. It's a very simple request. It can be provided at any time, but maybe, just maybe, this administration that has tried to cover up so much and tried to physically lift up Joe Biden and keep him upright is hiding even more. So we just want to hear how that interview actually went. I am in favor of moving forward to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. I think there are many other things that we need to have him in for and move forward on in holding him accountable. I mean, he's gone after so many American citizens, moms and dads who attend school board meetings, those of the Catholic faith. The DOJ has been completely weaponized, and it's very sad for our country. But this hearing will continue. We have many amendments. I'm sure there will be much dialogue. Hopefully, there is some decorum on both sides of the aisle. And if in my remaining 1 minute, I could request, every so often, Mr. Garcia, maybe you could just lift up that picture of our President Trump sleeping, as you say. I think he's praying. But if he is sleeping, you know, he certainly looks pretty while he sleeps. Maybe it's an endearing moment of prayer, though. I know when I fall asleep on airplanes, you know, my mouth kind of drops open. And, you know, his mouth is kind of tight-lipped, so maybe it's just a somber moment of
I mean,
thought.
he's sleeping. It's been reported by multiple press outlets.
I was in the
that he's
courtroom
actually
today,
sleeping.
and I do, I could see why someone would fall asleep, just like George Conway fell asleep today in the court hearing. You know, it's kind of slow in there. It's not as exciting as the House Oversight Committee, but I just wanted to say that's a lovely picture you have of President Trump, Mr. Garcia. Thank you, and I yield.
Gentlelady yields back.
Mr. Goldman said that the proceedings were largely a political stunt. He argued that the committee's actions were not based on substantial evidence and criticized the majority for prioritizing political theater over genuine oversight. Goldman highlighted the lack of any significant wrongdoing by Attorney General Garland, implying that the contempt resolution was more about creating a spectacle than addressing real issues.
The Oversight Committee does not have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice. The Judiciary Committee does, and I understand the Judiciary Committee held a markup of their own today on the same exact contempt motion. And so I thought, oh, well, let's take a look at the impeachment investigation. It must be coming from that. So I looked at the impeachment resolution that was passed on December 13th, 2023, HRes 918, and it refers to a memorandum dated September 27th, 2023, from the three chairs that was entitled Impeachment Inquiry. It's 30 pages long, this memorandum, and there isn't a single mention of classified documents or Special Counsel Robert Hur or Joe Biden possessing classified documents. And so, Mr. Chairman, I would ask what on earth we are doing here in the Oversight Committee when we have no jurisdiction to be holding the Attorney General in contempt. And I'll happily yield to you if you would like to respond. Doesn't want to respond.
I'll respond.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Gosa.
we actually set the precedent in my first term, our second term, in regards to holding Mr. Holder accountable in contempt in this very office or this very committee. And
yeah, but that was related, Mr. If I may just reclaim my time, that was related to an investigation that this committee was doing. What the Special Counsel Hur was investigating has nothing to do with anything that this committee is investigating. I understand that the impeachment investigation that you all ran was such a massive flop and a bust that you would like to try to distract from that complete humiliation, but doing so outside of your jurisdiction is probably not the best way to do it. And in reality, not only was this absurdly postponed so some people could go prostrate themselves in front of their dear leader today in New York, and we are now at 10 o'clock at night, but we have absolutely no reason to be here. We have no jurisdiction over this matter. It was properly in front of the Judiciary Committee. The Judiciary Committee will do what they want to do over there in the Department of Justice, but it is truly a reflection, an unfortunate reflection, of how desperate the chairman is to distract from what was a monumental bust of an impeachment investigation.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
So, not quite yet, Mr. Briggs. I'll get to you.
Thanks.
And so I would urge the chairman to explain to all of us what, other than pure distraction from the impeachment investigation that seems to be over now, as to why we are here at 10 o'clock at night marking up something over which we have no jurisdiction. Mr. Biggs, happy to yield to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And Mike, I guess my question is on your jurisdiction position, your position that we lack jurisdiction. I'm wondering if you would take what you think of Rule 10 of the committee's jurisdiction. And also,
Well, I don't have Rule 10 memorized, Mr. Biggs.
we'll take a look at it because it says, let me see if I can just give you a
Go
slight.
ahead and read it, just like you can read the transcript.
Yeah. Well, I would prefer actually seeing the audio of the transcript, hearing the audio of the transcript. Anything and any time, that's the language that's used in Rule 10. Take a look. It might be helpful when you're making a lack of jurisdiction argument. The other thing is,
What is anything at any time, Mr.
Take a look in Rule 10. I think you'll change your position. Let me ask you this other question.
Would the gentleman yield?
Well, I'll reclaim my time and yield to Mr. Raskin.
I wanted to thank the gentleman from New York for his trenchant remarks here. Would you think it's fair to say that it's not only way outside of our jurisdiction, but it's also redundant, given that the Judiciary Committee, which has jurisdiction, has already acted?
Well, of course. This is already going to go to the House floor regardless of whatever we do. So it's a shame that this committee feels so desperate to latch on to some victory that we need to hold a completely redundant, unnecessary markup over something that we have no jurisdiction. It is true that the President Biden has not asserted executive privilege over the entire subpoena, effectively, that they responded to, but for the audio, which is redundant because you have the information. There's no point in having the audio other than for political partisan purposes. And I understand how my colleagues get irritated because every time you bring up something about President Biden, we bring up something about President Trump. But the reason we do is because in every single circumstance, what President Trump did was so egregious compared to what President Biden may or may not have done. Donald Trump asserted executive privilege over everything, over just about everything while he was president. It was a reflex of his. And here you're complaining that Joe Biden finally asserted executive privilege over material that you cannot possibly enumerate a legitimate legislative purpose about. There is not one. You cannot, nobody can tell me, I know you say that what the intonation is why you need this, but I can assure you every court of law would tell you that the intonation of the voice as opposed to the words on the page is not a legitimate legislative purpose.
Mr. Chairman, would you yield to me, Mr. Chairman?
I think
Is it
Mr. Goldman's time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had yielded, Mr. Goldman.
No, that's okay. So I do think that the executive privilege assertion is yet another reason why the contempt motion fails, as it has previously, and there has been contempt proceedings have been called off when administrations, the last administration, has asserted executive privilege. If you would like to challenge the executive privilege, you may do so. You may go to court. But to hold the Attorney General in contempt over something that the President has asserted executive privilege is completely illegal and improper. So in addition to the jurisdictional problem, you also have an executive privilege problem because you can't hold someone in contempt for something they have no control over, whether it's asserted executive privilege. You're welcome to go to court. You can go to court and challenge the assertion of executive privilege. That has happened before. Don McGahn has a very well-known case now that was litigated because he asserted, the president asserted executive privilege over him. But this is a legitimate use of executive privilege. And if you disagree, go to court. But
Ms. Crockett strongly criticized former President Donald Trump's actions and the Republican response to his indictments. She highlighted the serious nature of Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents and his attempts to interfere with the 2020 election results, calling for accountability and justice. Crockett underscored that the law should apply equally to everyone, regardless of their position or power, and expressed frustration over the Republican-led efforts she saw as politically motivated distractions from more substantive issues.
Offered by the chair, Ms. Crockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, The point of deciding that we need to release this audio is really simple from my analysis. This is an opportunity for your party to take an opportunity to try to mock the current president. I know a lot of people refer to the former president as president, but we have one president at a time, and that is Joe Biden. And seemingly, this type of attitude and position has come straight from the top. This idea of lacking all decorum, decency, has left the building when the stench of Donald Trump showed up. And so we've seen constantly from him how he mocks people. We've seen in this committee how different members want to mock other members. And that's all this is about. But what is so frustrating to me and what should be frustrating to the American people, and the reason that really all y'all should lose y'all's jobs, but why we are going to take the majority is simple. It's because we showed up ready to work earlier today, like we always do. And now it is currently 10 p.m. and we are still here because we are committed to doing the right thing. And my question is really simple. It's a matter of, if this was such a big deal, if it was a matter of an emergency, if this was so important as it relates to whether or not the President of the United States has done something so wrong, then why is it that we couldn't have our hearing at 11 o'clock this morning instead of members being in a criminal courthouse with a twice impeached, over 88 count indicted sexual abuser, instead of being here to do the work of the American people if this was serious? This is the reason that people don't believe that we are doing serious
Mr. Chairman,
work
point of order.
here.
I'd ask the,
State your point.
my point of order is this. She just engaged in personalities about a former president, which
You can't engage in personalities with a former
You've
president.
just
That is not the
reviewed the rules, and you know that is true. If you were on the floor, you would be admonished. You know that.
Not the rules. That's not the rules.
Right.
That point of order would not be entertained.
That what?
You made an announcement that engaging in personalities.
Mr. Chairman, I'll further say, if this happened on
Right,
the floor,
right.
you would be admonished by the
Your
parliamentarian.
point is correct.
No, you made in this circumstance, you made an announcement, I believe, that points of order about insulting presidents or former presidents are not in order in this hearing, because I take it you're going after Joe Biden, and so.
I gave it to him. I don't know where it is. Okay. All right.
I think you carved out an exception to that rule.
Okay, point of order overruled. Ms. Crockett, finish, please.
I'll yield the remainder of my time to
All
my
right, thank you.
Would my friend yield to me?
Yes, I'll yield the remainder of the time.
I thank the gentlelady. You know, originally we have a motion, an ANS, to hold the Attorney General in contempt because he did not produce one item, an audio tape of the transcripts that were provided in full. And we decided apparently that that was what we were going to do because we're not sure about our chances in a court of law, which is really where this needs to be adjudicated. Now we have an amendment to the ANS taking cognizance of the development today in which the White House, not an unusual development and not always justified, invokes executive privilege. Now that is as old as the Republic. In fact, the first president to invoke executive privilege was George Washington, who did not want to provide documents regarding the Jay Treaty because it was controversial and might embarrass the White House. And we have had ups and downs with respect to executive privilege ever since. But the proper venue for adjudicating this is in a court of law. It isn't this committee. And so now this amendment to the amendment is essentially holding an attorney general in contempt because they're invoking executive privilege to protect information they choose not to provide the Congress. And I find that a very narrow basis, and I can understand why you don't want to have this adjudicated in a court of law, because I don't know that any judge would find that we have substantial reason to hold somebody in contempt for noncompliance. I thank the gentlelady for yielding.